legitimate process. And now there's inequality, but the inequality came about through voluntary interaction. And this idea, my favorite example to undermine the walls is eyes. Eyes. We all have two eyes here. There are some blind people. If we people gave one eye to the blind people, they would really benefit because one eye is a lot better than no eyes. And so what we should do if we're Rawlsians is we should have a little lottery. All sighted people, let's say there are 99% of us that have eyes, we should have a little lottery, and 1% of us ought to be forced to give up this eye to a blind person. That's Rawls. Well, to me, if you force someone to take my eye out of my head, that's a violation of the non-aggression principle. I don't see how you can reconcile that with justice.
Thank you. Dr. White, the question, what approaches are prominent in libertarianism and how have these approaches changed over time? What explains the diversity of approaches in libertarianism?
I can't answer that. Let me hit the start button. I want to stick by the 2-minute warning here. From what I understand, I read Nathaniel Branden, and he sort of gives you this brief history. It really develops with Ayn Rand, and it really comes to fruition in the early 1950s when Nathaniel Branden was at UCLA. They developed this philosophy of logical objectivism. Walt can speak on this better than I can. At some point, he met Murray Rothbard, and Murray Rothbard sort of was a friend of Ayn Rand, and they had their differences. And Rothbard is much more of an anarchist than Ayn Rand was, and so you have these differences within libertarianism. But I think Walter can comment on that better than I do, but he decided to use his 2 minutes for other purposes.
Professor Keulman.
Just first, to respond to Walter, I took an entire course with John Rawls on theory of justice. He would absolutely deny what you said about taking eyes from people. In fact, individual rights, as Roger said, he instantiates his theory of justice, and then moves on to the larger society. But we can talk about that maybe later in the discussion. I was trying to review a little bit with this first question on the historical background of libertarianism, which is very interesting. That, the feudal aristocracies of the past were unfair because they distribute income, wealth, opportunity, and power according to the accident of birth. So if you're born into the nobility, you have rights and powers which are denied those born into serfdom. But the circumstances of your birth, obviously, are not any of your own doing. So market societies claim to remedy this type of arbitrariness historically, at least to some degree. They open careers to those with the requisite talents, provides equality before the law. Citizens are assured equal fundamental liberties, and the distribution of income and wealth are determined by the market. Now this system, a market system with formal equality of opportunity, corresponds to the libertarian theory of justice, as I understand it. So it represents certainly an improvement over feudal times, over the feudal economy and the caste societies, since it rejects forced hierarchies of birth. So legally, it obviously allows everyone to strive, practice, however, opportunities may be far from equal, as we know from our own country, in which the current head of the Fed, Janet Yellen, decided to make the subject of her first public discourse inequality in America a few months ago. The forms of libertarianism, some of them, right libertarianism, left libertarianism, centrist, Lockean, anarcho-capitalism, anarcho-socialism, and I think more interesting for us, in New England, the transcendentalist movement gave some of the theoretical underpinnings to what we would later call libertarianism.
30 seconds.
Emerson's essay on self-reliance, Thoreau, Walden, civil disobedience, and the last thing I would say, the Tea Party movement, which 41% in the recent polls said they are libertarians, has moved from a fringe movement of the Republican coalition to, some would say, almost the central core of the conservative faction of the Republican Party today.
Thank you. The second question I'm going to ask Dr. White to respond first.
Okay.
Dr. White, why are there not any countries that use a libertarian form of government? How would you respond to those who argue that the lack of a clearly libertarian government anywhere is proof of libertarianism's supposed impracticability?
Well, I would respond to that. I think I'll use a minute on a practical level and another minute maybe on a theoretical level here. I think the practical level, I think it's interesting. Rand Paul is now declared as president, his candidacy for president. I think, and I want to make sure so Walter doesn't get insulted, I'm not saying that libertarians are socialists, but I'm saying that libertarians have kind of the same problem that the Socialist Party had, which is that third parties have a very difficult time here in the United States because of the two-party system. And so what happened with socialism is that the Democratic Party adopted portions of its program, and then socialists spent a lot of time attacking each other over whether or not they were selling out the party program by doing business with the Democrats. And I think some sort of mirror image is going to happen with the libertarians, where you're going to have Rand Paul, and the big debates are going to be about, well, is he really a libertarian? Is he selling out the libertarian? Already it's beginning, all right? So, but I think, in answer to your question more directly, I think libertarianism has an impact and probably will influence the Republican Party. So I don't think it's so much of the Libertarian Party gaining political power and then ruling as a Libertarian Party, which is sort of a weird idea. But the idea that the Libertarian Party itself will become something like the Democratic Socialists of America, who are a trend within the Democratic Party and sort of influence its programs. So on that. The second thing, I think the reason there are no libertarian governments or forms of government, or anarcho-libertarian models of social cooperation is, I ask my students this, what does it mean, why do we need laws to begin with? We need laws because laws are coercive. Now, the whole idea of voluntary coercion is an interior contradiction. If I'm going to do something of my own free will, why do I need coercion? A law that's not coercive is not a law, it's a recommendation. The fact is that when we feel that we want to do something and we need to be coerced to not do that, that is the limit of choice. So I think the fundamental problem with libertarianism is it suffers from an interior contradiction.
Dr. Blanc.
There are no countries that are fully libertarian, although there are empirical studies that the more libertarian the country is, the more free enterprise it is, the richer it is. There's a whole literature, James Wharton and other people have written about that. Look, there are no countries that there's no rape. Every country has rape. Every country has murder. So would it be impracticable to say we want a country with no rape and no murder? Well, I guess it would be impractical. So what? It's ideal. Sure, we want no murder, we want no rape, we want no theft, and there are no countries that have that, so therefore we should give up on that? Crazy. Well, there are no pure libertarian countries either, so therefore we should give up on libertarianism? Nonsense. Look, I agree with Roger, we have to have law. And libertarianism is the theory of what the law should be, and what the law should be is the non-aggression principle. Keep your goddamn mitts off of other people, and that's it, that's the law. Since I've got another few minutes, let me just say that I don't understand this narcissism. Of course there's evil. There's murder and rape and theft and all sorts of bad things. Libertarians recognize that. To say that Austrian theorists don't look at history shows that his reading is a little problematic. Look, he's attacking Adam Smith's invisible hand with his view about the spontaneous order. Adam Smith said that if you try to make profits, you will do more good for other people than if you use coercion against them. And I think the Adam Smithian notion of the invisible hand, that people are led by an invisible hand to search for profits, leads toward economic viability. And I don't see anything that Roger said that undermines that. With regard to what Ken said about the common good and social justice, I mean, he's got to be more specific. He's got to say, well, here's what the common good, here's what social justice is. To just say you favor that, I don't think is good enough. And then there's also this thing about economic rights versus political rights. There are no political rights for libertarianism. Because political rights just means we get to vote on what people do with other people's property. Look, let's talk about this egalitarianism and equal opportunity. Libertarians don't favor equal opportunity because people with who are very strong, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who've got a great IQ, they don't have equal opportunity with ordinary people. They've got much greater opportunity. They've got greater ability. So libertarians don't favor that. And this idea of taking money from rich people and giving it to poor people, that's theft. Look, if a poor person goes up to a rich person with a gun and says, give me your money because you're rich and I'm poor, that's theft. Now you have to distinguish between crony capitalism and laissez-faire capitalism. There are people who got their money not through the market process of Adam Smith, but through favors and government bailouts and subsidies and stuff like that. We libertarians don't favor that. We favor laissez-faire capitalism, not crony capitalism. And this idea of duty to assist, well, it's nice to assist, but if you have a duty to assist, then you have to give up your own. See, it's easy to say, well, let's take money from the rich and give it to the poor. That's why I like to say, let's give up eyes or hands, or, some people have 2 feet and other people have no feet. Let's take a foot off of Roger and give it to someone else and see how we might spend them apples.
Thank you. Professor Keulman.
Just a brief response to Walter and Adam Smith. It's always interesting to me when I get involved in these kinds of conversations with either other libertarians or economists, how they mention the invisible hand of the market, Adam Smith, but they somehow always neglect to mention that one of Adam Smith's most important work actually has to do with ethics in the marketplace. Somehow that gets lost in all these arguments. I can't imagine why, but it's just kind of a side issue. One response, I think, to the inadequacies of libertarianism is communitarianism, which is a political philosophy and in some cases a real praxis in which the importance of individual rights is calibrated with the importance of the human community. The libertarian position is seriously inadequate in this respect, as it said before, the significance of ordinary and political community. For example, there are times when joint action, and this here I'm not quoting exactly, but reflecting on a conversation I actually had with Robert Nozick some years ago, who I knew somewhat, just slightly at Harvard when we were talking about anarchist and utopia many years after the subject published. He said he could no longer hold some aspects of that book, and this is one of the reasons. Because he found there was a time in the life of every society and every person when joint action can only take on full symbolic corporate coloration when undertaken on behalf of the social whole, not just one libertarian monad, speaking alone somewhere, or even as a lecture, whatever. And the point is not simply a pragmatic one to accomplish a particular purpose. That might be accomplished through private contributions alone, as libertarians say, where the issues are financial ones, or to get others to pay as well. There's a famine in Africa, or we want to alleviate poverty in certain parts of New Orleans. The libertarian says, well, no, the government should give, because they're stealing my money, taxation is theft, to do this, but I'll make a contribution, and I hope that others will too. Well, good luck to those people who are counting on the others to make those contributions. You need a much more systematic, sophisticated way of delivery of services. Groups like Medicine Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, the International Rescue Committee, the Red Cross. These aren't simply a bunch of people who say, well, I hope someone will contribute someday, no, sorry, that doesn't work in the real world as far as I'm concerned. So, there's a time, even according to Nozick, when you need to speak solemnly in everyone's name, in the name of the society, about what it holds important. Like after 9/11, when Americans did come together to talk about what really do we value in our society. Basically, I wanted to quote Mother Bosch, who's here with us tonight. Totalitarianism is egocentric contractualism. And can I just end with one very practical problem with Professor Block has already raised. And again, in one of the conversations I had with Nozick, he said, well, everyone will follow me on my book up to a certain point, these people I talked to. And that's when I say, if you want to go along on this minimal state, anarchy state utopia that I described, you've got to follow me to the absolute end, which is you must legalize hard drugs and prostitution. And he said that's when a lot of people couldn't make that bend in the road. They said, well, I can't quite go that far. And Nozick said, sorry, you're not in.
We'll move on to the next question. Professor Keulman, you'll go first on this, and then Professor Block, and then Professor White. Professor Keulman, what do you make of Noam Chomsky's criticism that it is impossible to separate positive and negative rights that the idea of free contract between the business owner and his starving subject is inherently unfair and unfree?
Sure. Well, I have the privilege of being on a panel once or twice with Bill Chomsky, and I respect a lot of his views. I know all of them today, but I don't agree that it's impossible to separate positive and negative rights from within the classic rights framework. A positive right is a right to be subjected to an action of another person or group. Positive rights ordinarily oblige some form of action, whereas negative rights ordinarily obviously oblige inaction. And these obligations may be of either a legal or a moral nature. So positive rights can include civil and political rights, such as protection of person and property, and the right to counsel, as well as economic, cultural, and social rights, such as food, housing, public education, health care, and a minimum standard of living. And a negative right is a right not to be subjected to an action of another person or group. And as you know, the UN Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, really focused, first of all, on negative rights, or many of them. The right not to be tortured, and so forth. It wasn't totally negative rights, but the Declaration focused very often on this group. So a government, for instance, it also includes civil and political rights, such as freedom of speech, life, freedom of worship, habeas corpus, a fair trial, freedom from slavery, and the right not to be tortured, which is something our country is dealing with today, as you know. And the last thing I would say, I agree that the idea of free contract between the business owner and the starving subject is inherently unfair, unfree, and actually can better be described as a sick joke. It should be discussed only in maybe an academic seminar. That might be made by anarcho-capitalists, and I think anarcho-capitalism, if it's ever implemented, would lead to forms of tyranny and oppression that have few parallels in human history.
Professor Block.
I think Noam Chomsky is wrong. I think